So this week I have been studying shame still and cognitive distortions and body love. So I'm just going to say a little bit about body love. I've been focusing more on shame. The idea of cleaning the inside will help clean the outside and bring me to more body love. And a big thing that I've done this week was buy new clothes. Woo! Which has been really nice because very few of my clothes fit me anymore because I gained a lot of weight, partially because of health issues and, just being human. So it's just felt a lot more accepting of my body to say I'm going to buy clothes that fit my body instead of trying to force my body to fit clothes that it really doesn't fit in. So it's been feeling a lot more accepting of myself, and I felt a lot more comfortable, which is amazing. And I'm just so dang cute anyway. I don't know how I couldn't like my body. Anyway, so that's been really nice to take those steps. The other thing I've been working on is shame still, and working with my shame monster, that piece of artwork that I introduced last week. I'm going to show you again. So this is my shame monster, Mr. Hole, and this is his inside. And just as a reminder, so the whole idea is on his insides is that Mr. Hole can eat toxic thoughts and then detoxify them as he digests them, which I think is so cool. There's animals in the animal kingdom that can do that, and I based him off of that concept, but a little bit more fanciful than like in here it is this compound that his body changes this way. Instead, it's a kingdom, and it has all of the shaming cognitive distortions that I practice, and then empathy, and how I want to practice empathy in my life. So, and then I've just been telling stories that move a little boy named Ian from the kingdom of shame to the oasis of empathy, and how his movements happen, which have been helping my feelings change with it, which has been really awesome to see myself moving from feelings of shame to feelings of empathy. Because shame, just in case you don't know, is feeling, instead of just I made a mistake, it's I am a mistake, which can be much more debilitating for us to change and to move and to become better. Whereas feelings of guilt, of recognizing I am still lovable and I made a mistake, is much more empowering and allows us to change. There's lots of different evidence about this. There's some different ideas of how shame works. Also a lot of studies and tests done to kind of understand shame better, and that's the stuff I agree with, that shame is less useful and that guilt is more useful. And I've been thinking a lot about George Floyd this week and his death, him being strangled by a police officer in Minnesota, and definitely processing a lot of shame in that process. I watched the full version of the video. I didn't like how much it was filtered by media, so I found a version I could watch the whole thing, and it was very disturbing, and I feel definitely lots of shame, not just personally, but as a humankind, and wondering if these actions mean that humanity is bad, and if we have worth still, and if we can love ourselves despite this. So today I wanted to tell a story from my shame monster about Ian and how he moved from kingdom of shame to oasis of empathy. And I thought of this story, and it's a little dark and might be a little hard to swallow. So you're more than welcome to not watch. That's your choice. And yeah, this is my story. I'm a little hesitant to share because it is very personal, even though it's just a fictional story about a boy. But there was a lot of profoundness in it, and kind of a lot of vulnerability. So I'm going to share because I feel like vulnerability and sharing our dark places is what's needed right now. Hiding is not what we need. We need sharing. And I'm going to take the plunge to do that. So hopefully you respect that. So, Ian is 7 years old. He has blonde hair and green eyes and has fair skin and is a very curious little boy. One day, he was walking in his neighborhood when he noticed in between two houses a very mysterious dark cave that he had never seen before. And since Ian is very curious, he decided to go and find out what was in there. So he crouched down and he looked in, and when he looked, he saw the gigantic face of a monster with sharp fangs and glowing orange eyes and mouth. And before Ian knew what happened, the monster caught him up in his mouth, and Ian knew no more. When Ian woke up, he found himself in a very mysterious place. He saw trees all around him and a cave a little ways off. He thought, oh, well, I need some place to sit and think. So I'm going to go into that little den and sit. I don't know where I am, and it feels like I need some protection and to hide. So he crawled down and into the cave, and before he knew what happened, the cave closed, a rock fell, and all was dark. He didn't know what to do. He pushed up against the rock and couldn't get out. So he started to climb through the cave, thinking there might be another exit. And as he climbed, he started to feel something squishy and soft underneath his hands and feet and knees. He didn't know what it was, but he kept walking, knowing that he had to keep going. Otherwise, where else would he go? Soon he started to see a strange, ethereal light ahead of him. It was not the most inviting light, but it was the only light there was, so he kept towards it. And as he walked, he started to notice the light hitting the floor, the squishy floor he'd been walking on, and he saw dark faces that were blank, devoid of eyes. And he kept walking, and he was terrified of these dark faces that he saw. And as he got closer to this strange ethereal light, he saw it was a ghost. But it felt familiar in a way. He kept going forward, and soon he saw it was himself, a rotting corpse of a ghost. Ian was terrified, and he began to scream and scream and scream. He didn't know what to do. He screamed and so loud until the walls around him started to crack, and light came bursting in through the cave. And he looked down around him, and he noticed these faces they did have eyes. They were just closed, and as they opened, he saw these beautiful, beautiful faces. And he was very sorry he'd been walking on them, and he got to the farthest edge of the cave as he could, and he looked down, and as light came shining in, flooding into the cave, all the people started to stand and rise and walk, and he saw that they were the most beautiful people he had ever seen in his whole life. They had a glowing about them, and they started to walk away. They were all dressed in the brightest of colors, and Ian knew he was safe, and he followed them. And soon, as he followed them, they got to a lake, and the lake was at a base of a mountain, and he had been to this mountain before. It was called the Mountain of Courage. And he looked around, and he knew he was in the Forest of Compassion. And this is what it looked like. I don't have the lake. The lake is on the other side of the mountain. And Ian knew that he was safe and the people were home, and they all gave him a hug, and they thanked him for opening the cave and for seeing. And slowly the people walked into the lake where they would be safe, and they were home. And Ian sat on the shore and he watched the blue sky above, and he felt calm and that all was safe. I hope you enjoyed my story. I know it felt very vulnerable to share my process of going through shame to some sense of empathy and light, and I hope that you can learn something from it, and I hope to hear your stories of anything that you would like to share. God bless you.